Okay, today let's talk about making Block Head Robby Machine's gyro section. We need to get that put in before we do the side ear cup covers and scanner rings. There's really only one difference between the section that's going to go on the block head versus, versus what I covered back on Let's Build Robby the Robot's Mechanical Gyros and Drone Light Unit. I'll put a link to this video for those of you that haven't watched it because there's lots of information in that video. There's only one main difference between what we're going to do today and what's there is basically we don't need this fancy holding shell. All we need is a flat plate. And let's take a peek. I think I have some pictures brought up. Here we go. So the main difference is instead of that whole big shell, there's going to be this flat plate that we print because that way we can glue that up into the top of the head. And let's just give a quick overview because you can go watch that other video for all the information. But a quick overview would be, here's a picture taken back in the late 1980s, early 1990s. This is the machined disc. The gyros themselves are formed from those machined discs with grooves in it, and then the grooves are painted white, and you can see there's little holes, and if you look real close you can see there's little wire hoops being placed in all those holes. And that's how it is done if you're trying to build the gyros screen accurate. But I gave in that first video that you should go watch 3 other options. You can 3D print that disc rather than pay a machinist to make them for you. And if you print them on an FDM printer, unfortunately, they won't be clear. So what you can do from that is you could print that part on an FDM printer, make a silicon rubber mold, and then cast the discs in clear resin. Another option is if you have a resin printer, you could probably print them in clear resin on the resin printer and they would probably be fairly clear. Not owning a resin printer yet, I can't tell you for sure. So let's try to get back to some of the earlier pictures here. We need to get back more towards the beginning. Okay. So one of the first steps you'll do is you'll print this, which is basically the gearbox frame. And I'm using the 120:1, or as I like to call it in the ads, 1:120 gear motor, which is held on, in my case, with 2 632 screws. It sticks through, it's one piece. This is a shaft that we have to glue down into that recessed straight and all the way down in there. There's a hole because the wires from the top dome light are going to pass all the way down through that shaft and then come out through the bottom. And here you can see the small gear, which sits on the D-shaped shaft of the motor. Doesn't have to be screwed or glued or anything, just set it in there. This is the backside view of what that piece looks like. There's the gear sitting in there. Here's the center shaft glued in place. Next thing we're going to set in there is this large gear with a hex drive. Just slides right down on the shaft. Should interface with those gears. No gluing involved there. Sits in just like that. In fact, at this point you can have the wire soldered on the motor and you could be test running your motor to make sure that everything is turning in the direction that you want in a counterclockwise. Then here's the new plate. You can see it has a lobe out to match the lobe out area. Just put some your favorite glue in there. Like I say, I like to use the Weld-On number 16. And then press it right down in there. I don't know what I got stuck on my throat today. Maybe probably smoke from all the fires. So that is now glued together. So you have one piece there. This is basically a riser. We're looking at the top side of the whole affair now. You don't want to put any glue in the center hole because this hex drive actually sticks through and the shaft sticks through. But this part here can get glued down into here. It's just a keyway that locks it down in place. It's a riser to hold the next gear up in place. So that's glued down in there. Then this large round flat gear, put a few drops of glue around on there. Drop that down on there and center it with your fingers. You want to get that fairly centered to this piece. So it's going to look like that. So basically right now the whole mechanical part of this lower section is built, but we can't glue that into the head without squarely, without getting things rubbing, unless we've already assembled the upper bell part. And like I say, we did already cover that there were 3 different ways of doing this upper thing, and I briefly talked about 2 of them, you know, having the disc machined or 3D printing that flat disc. Well, this is the 3rd way, the easiest way, and all it takes is some white PLA, or if you don't have white you can paint it white later. But it 3D prints all these rings, which you just glue together. It's actually the fastest and the cheapest way to do it. Granted, it's not screen accurate, but it looks pretty dang good. So if you assemble the bell with its little gears and all that, which is covered in the other video, and drop it down on here and put power into that, then this whole bell should be spinning and the gyro should be spinning as their gears lock into this. We need to be able to do that so that when we put glue on this plate, lift it up inside the head of the Robby machine, and then drop the bell down in, we can eyesight, or you could put a little cardboard ring around this lower base to make sure it's centered in the opening in the top of the Robby the machine head so it won't be dragging. I experimented with the idea of putting a switch and cam on the shaft that was unused on the bottom as making a alternating flasher. I was thinking, well, maybe I'll end up doing the beam lights on the scanner ring ear cups. But I didn't end up needing to do it that way. I was able to put all this assembly right in one of the ear cups. But I did experiment with it, and it is possible. If you do need an extra flasher for any reason, maybe you want to add some other effect, it can be done. It looks like that if you do it. So this is a test fit of the bell sitting down on it. Remember, nothing's holding the bell there. It's just sitting down on the shaft right now. You can test run it. There it is, lifted off. I actually put the bell down and then do a pencil line around it is another way. If you don't want to eyesight this in the opening in the top of the head, or you don't want to put a cardboard ring around it, drop it down there and draw a pencil line around it. Then you can sight that when you lifting it up from the inside so that you know you have it lined up just right. There isn't a whole lot of clearance. I should have probably made this opening bigger. I didn't really think about it. I made it big enough. It doesn't rub if you center it. You just have to be right. And depending on what glue you use, you might only have one shot at it. It's a view from the inside showing it glued up in the top. This crap down on the bottom is that switch that I talked about that you don't need to worry about. That's just a look inside the bell and the gear assemblies. Again, this is all covered in that other gyro video. The dome light assembly. I've done 3 different dome light cover scales, a small, a medium, and a large, and basically on the full-size Block Head Robby machine, the largest looks best. It looks more like the screen used one. On this small little standalone guy, I kind of like the way that this medium-sized dome looks. Really the best dome light cover. So that's just showing it glued in place and sitting on top. So I think we're just about at the end of the picture show and description. Yeah. So that's basically all there is to it. Let me go over here and flip the switch on. This is what we're talking about. You can see there is a gap between the bell and the head. It's not much, it's tight. So you don't want that rubbing. That's why you want to either draw the line or sight it or have cardboard when you glue that down in place. And be sure to watch the other video for all the details on how to assemble the shafts and all that kind of stuff. But I think we covered it pretty well here. Like I say, the next video we'll get into the scanner rings, the beam 4-way flashers, and all that good kind of stuff. So stay tuned.